HelloFresh takes the guesswork and the extra hassle out of planning and preparing delicious meals for dinner. America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh gives you over 40 recipes to choose from each week. And then your farm-fresh, pre-portioned seasonal ingredients arrive at your doorstep with simple instructions to help you feel like the master chef of your kitchen. And did you know that HelloFresh is cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% less expensive than takeout? HelloFresh has been an awesome addition to our household's dinner routine. We all get involved and cook together, following the pictured step-by-step instructions. It's a fun quality time and the meals are delicious. Give it a try and see for yourself. Go to HelloFresh.com/50HavingItAll and use code 50HavingItAll for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, to get 50% off plus free shipping, go to HelloFresh.com/50HavingItAll and use code 50HavingItAll.
Listen up. I won't sugarcoat it. This is the longest cold, flu, and allergy season we've ever seen, but we're not alone. We've got Instacart. Sure, you may be a coughing snot faucet who just wants mommy, but you're not giving up. Not when cold medicine, fragrant herbal teas, and honey shaped like bears can be delivered through Instacart in as fast as 30 minutes. Now let's go win the sick playoffs.
Daddy, I just want my soup.
Oh, sorry, Sport. App says it'll be here in a few minutes. Instacart for the win.
Welcome to Having It All. My name is Matthew Bivens, and each week I bring you conversations and insights that explore the question, what does having it all mean to you? My goal is to leave you with stories you can relate to and messages you can take action on so that you can create an abundant, loving life. I am so excited that you're here to hang out with me today. Now, let's jump right into this episode. Today's conversation is another special one because I'm sitting here live with my beautiful wife, Sarah, and she's joining me on this episode because today we're talking all about love. If you remember the past, I believe 2 to 3 episodes, we've been going through the Having It All framework, and again, all stands for abundant, loving life. So in last week's solo episode, I talked about abundance and what that truly means. And today, we're going to talk about love. And so I thought to myself, well, who better to have here with me to talk about love than the woman who I am so incredibly in love with, or the women, both of them, Sarah and our soon-to-be little baby Maya. So Sarah, how are you being today?
I am awesome. Thank you. Thank you for asking. Thank you for having me here. I'm super excited. And I want to clarify something first. Is this going to be a clean episode or is this going to be a parental advisory episode? I need to prepare myself for how to regulate my speech.
Oh, I dig the rawness, so let it flow, baby.
Okay, well, we'll see then. I won't bust out with anything unless it's necessary, because I know that's important how you label your episodes.
Yeah, as long as I know, I can then label it, and then I don't know. Maybe people get excited when they see the little E. On iTunes for explicit
content.
So before we jumped on the call, on the recording, when we were sort of chatting about what we want to talk about, you were singing a song. You were singing a song by a pretty famous band. I think you've heard of them, called the Beatles.
Yes.
And you were saying, all you need is love.
Love, love, love.
Yeah. And so I was like, yeah, you know what? That is true. All you truly need is love. But what kind of love?
Right.
And so I thought that was a great kicking off point because it can help set the context and framework within which we're going to talk about love today. And I also wanted you on here as well because, you're the creator of Back to Complete and the co-creator of Unleash Your Humble Badass. Back to Complete is your blog.
Yes.
And Unleash Your Humble Badass is the digital program that you've created, put together, and both of them are really about self-love.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I think you're an expert.
Oh, well, thank you. Well,
Yeah.
I believe the self-love is really at the root of a lot of the struggles, frustrations, stress that we believe we're experiencing, right? It's very real to believe you're in a certain state of less than joy. And I think a lot of that comes from a lack of self-love, most likely due to a lack of self-understanding. I think the two go together a lot. When you aren't clear on who you are, it's very easy to operate from a space that looks like love maybe, but isn't. And I'm sure we're going to get into that with the other things that may look like love, the kind of things that wear the mask of it, but really aren't truly unconditional love.
Yeah, let's jump right into that because, the context, having it all, abundant, loving life. It is important to have a distinction between the different types of love. And, there's the love that we see on TV. There's the love that, some self-help material puts out there. But that's not the type of love that we're talking about today. So let's jump in. You mentioned conditional versus unconditional. So what are those differences?
Okay, so if you look at it just literally, if you look at the words, condition, love with condition, or love without condition, and it makes me think of attachment and connection. So I think when love is conditional, there's all of these expectations tied to it. There's most likely a lot of resentment on the other end of whatever that condition is that's being held.
When it's not met.
Right. And then at the end, we kind of feel disappointed because we put so much stock in what we were expecting to happen. And so then when the bottom falls out of that, we feel like we're kind of left with nothing else.
Which is pretty inevitable when you place those conditions on it. So conditional love looks like I'll love you when.
Right.
I'll love you as long as. And you're absolutely right. When you put those conditions on it, inevitably, because you have conditions in the first place, you're going to experience them not being met. And then, like you said, a lot of times you feel the disappointment, you feel the frustration, you feel the impact of having conditional love.
Right. We talked about this the other day. Someone who, in a relationship, for instance, whether that's a romantic partnership or a familial relationship, makes a decision to make someone else happy, to get their love, to receive their love.
Yeah.
Well, you've just set yourself up for a really interesting agreement, a really interesting contract, because then that means everything else you have to do after that needs to keep that up.
Yeah.
Because now that person's love for you is based on you doing what they want, not truly what comes from your mission or your value or what you're about.
It's conditional.
And that's a very interesting agreement that a lot of us make every single day with people. We do things with the hope, love me because I'm doing this for you. But then when they're left unsatisfied, which they probably will at some point because it's not a genuine act that you're coming from, you're disappointed, you're upset, you still want their love. They want you to do what they want.
Yeah.
HelloFresh takes the guesswork and the extra hassle out of planning and preparing delicious meals for dinner. America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh gives you over 40 recipes to choose from each week. And then your farm-fresh, pre-portioned seasonal ingredients arrive at your doorstep with simple instructions to help you feel like the master chef of your kitchen. And did you know that HelloFresh is cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% less expensive than takeout? HelloFresh has been an awesome addition to our household's dinner routine. We all get involved and cook together, following the pictured step-by-step instructions. It's a fun quality time, and the meals are delicious. Give it a try and see for yourself. Go to HelloFresh.com/50HavingItAll and use code 50HavingItAll for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, to get 50% off plus free shipping, go to HelloFresh.com/50HavingItAll and use code 50HavingItAll.
Ay, mija, abuelita's on her way and I still need to shop for the party.
No worries. Let's order through Instacart.
¿Insta qué?
Sí, llama. We can order groceries and more online and get everything delivered in as fast as an hour.
Everything for dinner? Carne, tortillas, limas, plátanos.
Claro. Anything else?
Just make sure the plátanos are ripe.
Get groceries delivered same day with Instacart so you have more time for family. Visit instacart.com or download the app to get free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum order $10. Additional terms apply.
Yeah, and what that makes me think about is this idea that love is something that needs to be earned. You know, like you have to earn my love. Yeah, that would be really interesting if you and I had that sort of set up with our relationship and our love, if that's how it was from the get-go. Like you have to earn my love.
Right, that condition. And then, what's the real motivator behind that then? Like you say it's love, but really it's fear. It's fear of rejection. It's fear of not being accepted. It's that love is no longer the real motivator. And you can be motivated to do a lot by fear, by pressure, that you create for yourself. That gets us moving a lot quicker sometimes than what we imagine love would motivate us to do, because that fear is so high.
Yeah, and where it gets tricky is where fear and judgment and anger and desire are masked as love, or are, put across as love. And so we do these things believing that they're out of love, but the root of them is truly fear. And I want to bring up now the scale of consciousness from power versus force. So if you're listening right now and you're at a computer, or you're not driving or something, go online, go to Google and search scale of consciousness, power versus force.
David R. Hawkins, and you'll see a table. We're looking at this table right now. It's on the computer in front of us. And I just want to point out where love calibrates. So, Sarah, in 30 seconds, how can we explain the scale of consciousness? So everything has an energetic reading, right? If you believe that everything is energy, everything has a certain energetic content. And so what David R. Hawkins has done, he is a specialist in kinesiology, and he had been able to figure out a way to essentially measure the energy of things, places. You can read more about that. But what this essentially is an energetic reading, if you will, a calibration of where certain things fall on this scale of consciousness. If you were to look at consciousness from the lower end to the higher end with, energetic readings and levels, that's where this is. So that's my best 30-second explanation, awesome. But you can learn more.
Yeah, and to ground it a little bit as well, you can simply look at it as, how do you show up in life? When you take the average of who you are being in different situations, are you coming from a place of anger? Are you coming from a place of pride? Are you coming from a place of courage, neutrality, willingness? So the the scale of consciousness is just showing you the average state of being that you are in. So if you look at it, love is pretty close to the top. Love is 4 away from the top. The very, very top of this scale is enlightenment, followed by peace, followed by joy, followed by love. Now, further down the scale, once you get into so below 200, below the level of 200, you are in what's called force. You are forcing things to happen. Force creates resistance, creates friction. Force does not create healing. Force does not create a rise in energy. It creates a dip in energy.
Right.
When you are above level 200, you're in power. Power is strength plus flow. Power heals. So love is very high up on the power. And now desire is very low. And if you get back to what we said earlier, how many times do we mask desire as love? That happens so often. And I think in media and Hollywood, that's a huge message.
Oh yeah. It's what we're sold every single day.
Yeah.
We're encouraged to want and to crave, whether it's a tasty snack or a new shirt or a beauty product that's going to change everything, make us happy and make us love ourselves for once.
And you made me think of the difference between connection and attachment. And there, when we love somebody, it's easy for us to feel like we need to be attached to them.
Sure.
And I mean, I remember years ago, when I was the girl I was dating before you, Sarah, we've talked about this. I convinced myself, and this may not necessarily be the same as attachment and connection, but it is an example of the stories that we create about what love is.
Sure.
I convinced myself that love was me not being able to be happy if she wasn't happy.
Oh, yeah.
Which meant I was attaching my cart to her emotional roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that time, both of us were going through the emotional roller coaster. And so I said, okay, I cannot be happy if she's not happy. So when she was happy, I was great. I was on top of the world. When she wasn't happy, I felt it. And, I convinced myself of that.
Mm-hmm.
I convinced myself that was true love. So that's just a little tangent. And, maybe you can think of the stories, you listening right now, you can think of some of the stories around love that you've convinced yourself of. Because
Sure.
I'm sure they're there.
Well, I think that's awesome. I think it does tie in. And can you share that little metaphor or analogy you came up with when we were chatting beforehand of the magnet and the paper? Because I think that ties in directly with that. And I think, when you create that visual, I think there's absolutely people who can relate to, oh, wow, I've been that paper.
Yeah. So there's a difference between attachment and connection. So connection looks like two magnets, right? The North Pole, South Pole magnets connected. Boom. There's a strong bond.
Sure.
But when you separate the two magnets, it separates clean.
Right.
There's no damage. There's no leftover residue, right? When they come together, they are very connected and they are very strong. But when they are pulled apart, they are still whole. Now, attachment is like gluing two pieces of paper together, right? So imagine gluing two pieces of paper together and then trying to separate them. What's going to happen? Well, they're going to rip. There's going to be damage done. There's going to be pieces of paper left on one sheet, and it's not going to come apart clean, and both pieces of paper are going to be forever impacted by that connection.
I really, really like that, because if you take a second to actually absorb that and think about it, how many of us have been that sheet of paper, have been so tightly glued to what we thought was, whether it was the love of our life, a person, a job, a place, whatever the case is, an idea, and then to have that kind of ripped apart when the conditions to that love no longer hold up.
Yeah.
Like, it's messy and like there's all this crust and tiny rips in the paper and
clean
stuff.
up all the debris.
And then, like you said, there's some that some of the sheets of paper leave marks on each other.
Yeah.
And then you go off into the world looking to reglue to something else when you are now less whole than you were before. That is not love. That's not love for yourself. That's not love for other people. And that's not love for your life. That's not a passion, like a joie de vivre, if you will. Like that's not love. That is not abundant, loving life.
Yeah. I mean, such a much more powerful place to be in is that incredibly deep, strong, fulfilling connection with someone. And, this stuff is challenging. You and I talked about this yesterday. We were in the car. So we have two dogs. We have Olive and Watson. And we were talking in the car about, when baby Maya comes into the world, Olive and Watson will be 4 and 5. They're not going to be around forever, right?
Yes, they will.
So you and I are very attached to them.
A little bit. I will, yes.
Yeah, I will say I'm very attached to my dogs. And so, obviously a more powerful place that's gonna hurt less is gonna be being very connected to them. Right. But right now I'm very attached to them. And so, when the day comes when they decide to go on to the next phase, it's if I'm at where I'm at right now, it's gonna be messy. It's gonna be a lot of ripping. It's gonna be a lot of damage done. And so, like, this stuff is challenging, because so much of what we're taught, so much of the script that we're handed about love is about attachment and it's about condition. Mm-hmm. And so for us to sit here and say a more powerful place to be is unconditional and connected, we're not also saying it's easy. Mm-hmm. We're not also saying that making that shift in how you view love and how you be love is easy.
Mm-hmm. And this brought up something for me. I don't really know how it ties in necessarily to, from the framework, but the flip of that the grief. That's what came up for me when you're talking about like losing something, whether it's someone that has passed away or someone that's no longer in your life anymore. Grief is a very real emotion and counter to love. It's interesting how they kind of tie in with each other, but then at the same time, it's a very interesting relationship for the two. And I remember when I was mourning or grieving the loss of someone, I read in something, I can't remember what it was, but it was a very powerful statement for me. And it was that the grief you're experiencing, grief is made a lot more simple when you have a true loving connection with the person, and you're in a great space and you're kind of resolved to, you have that unconditional love. So I think when you have that unconditional love, things like grief, while they'll still be very relevant, they'll still be very palpable, it's a lot more simple to deal with than if you were in a space with something that you had this tumultuous conditional love with, and now it's no longer in your life. I feel like the grief from that, the fall from that, is a lot harder than having that unconditional love.
Powerful. Okay, so I want to loop this back around and bring this back to the context of having it all and abundant loving life, because if we remember, the life part of it is those 6 F's: faith, family, friends, fitness, finance, and fun. Did I get them all?
Yes.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I got them all.
Okay.
So being able to have a loving experience of each of those, and being able to say that you are showing up in each of those areas as loving, I believe, and we are stating, it starts with a deep love of self. And you stated earlier that love of self begins with understanding.
Yes.
And since I view you as the expert, especially in this household, can you give some very concrete action steps that if you listening are saying, okay, I want to work on my self-love because I notice that I don't have the most loving conversations about myself in my head. I notice that I am my biggest critic. I notice that it's very easy for me to judge myself. Therefore, it's easy for me also to judge other people. And if that's something you want to work on, then Sarah, can you give just three simple things that people can do to love themselves and to begin to create a more loving relationship with themselves, so that they can then go out and show up powerfully and loving in those 6 F's, so that they can create an abundant, loving life?
Sure. So first thing I would say is self-affirmation, but not just, reading it off of an app or something like that. I'm talking about standing in front of the mirror first thing in the morning or last thing at the end of the day before you go to bed, looking at yourself, piercing into your soul and saying, I love you. And I love you because X, Y, and Z, whatever that is. And it might feel weird at first. I know when I started practicing this a few years ago, felt a little goofy, but it really, there's an immediate benefit to it when you start doing that, especially if you dedicate yourself to it. And men, you do it too. You do it, Matthew. So
yeah, I have it on my balance chart to do an affirmation like that 5 times a week. And I've been doing that for a while, and I go through ebbs and flows, weeks when I get them all and weeks when I don't. And when I'm not consistent with it, it feels awkward.
Right.
But that's how you know that it is something worth doing.
Right.
Because it feels awkward and it feels uncomfortable. That means that there's an opportunity to grow. Right. And it's simple, just looking at yourself in the mirror, looking into your eyes and saying, I love you, Matthew.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
It it's powerful. It's pretty incredible what impact that simple act can have. But you got to actually do it, and you got to keep it up, put the reps in.
Right. Okay.
All right, number 2.
Just to touch on that for one more second, dudes love themselves too. Dudes need to love themselves. So
Yes.
I like that you've had a lot of really powerful men on the show,
Yeah.
challenging, masculinity and what that looks like and what it looks like to be a powerful
Yeah.
man. So I'm sure there can be a ton more episodes on man self-love, but it's so important for all of us, for men to be loving themselves as well.
Yeah, and so thanks for mentioning that, because my guest, Dale Thomas Vaughn, he is a guy who has spent the past however many years of his life examining the script of masculinity and really looking at what we as men have been taught masculinity is, and looking at how that has, in many instances, hurt our health, our mental health, spiritual health, emotional health, physical health, social health. And so, Dale has just been a pioneer in really examining that. So, go to firesidenetwork.com and listen to the episode. The title is Loving Your Otherness and the Myth of Tomorrow with Dale Thomas Vaughn. So check it out on Fireside Network. That's where this show lives. And also check it out on iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play. Again, the title is Loving Your Otherness and the Myth of Tomorrow. And you'll hear Dale talk about the script and the beliefs around masculinity in 2016.
Great. The second example I would give as far as practicing self-love is to love on your physical body. The body doesn't lie. So a lot of times the way our bodies are showing up is indicative of other things going on metaphysically, emotionally, mentally. So I would recommend making some shifts in that area, whatever that looks like. Maybe it's shifting first thing in the morning from reaching for that coffee immediately to a glass of water to hydrate yourself. We were just learning last night, you're essentially dehydrated when you wake up every single morning because you're going 8+ hours. If you sleep 8 hours, like I do right now before a baby, you need water first thing in the morning. So something like that, or just going for a walk, or choosing that salad over a burger. Those types of things are really going to empower you, and they're all giving back to you. Those are acts that fuel your tank. We're all expected to get up every single day, give out everything we have to everyone else, have nothing left at the end of the day, but have a smile about it, wake up the next morning and do it all over again.
Yeah. Okay. So pick one. Give them one thing.
Drink 10 ounces of water when you wake up.
Okay, cool. So
love yourself.
The first thing is affirmations in the mirror.
Yes.
The second thing is to drink 10 ounces of water as soon as you wake up, the first thing you do. Third thing
would be to take essentially a relationship audit of your life. Look at the people around you, look at those relationships, and understand that the people you spend the most time with, the people that you create the most intimate relationships with, are inevitably going to impact how you love yourself, because they're either going to be in support of that or not. They're either going to be adding to that, or they're going to be siphoning off of that and draining you of that.
Yeah.
So that might seem like a difficult or lofty task, but there are ways to do that. I have developed ways to kind of look at the relationships in your life. There's a section in the Unleash Your Humble Badass course that you've mentioned before on the show, where you essentially take inventory of the relationships in your life and you think about what you want them to look like and what you want to experience in them. So that's something that you can do within that course.
Cool. So if we were to recap the 3 things that you listening can go do today to love on yourself, the first is take a minute to just every day, maybe a couple times a week, look yourself in the mirror and say, I love you. I love you, insert your name, and say why. That's number 1. The second is, once you wake up in the morning, the first thing that you do, before you jump on your phone, before you brush your teeth, go get a glass of water and drink 10 ounces of water. And the third thing you can do is take a relationship audit. Really look at the relationships in your life that are important to you and ask yourself, how am I showing up in those relationships? Do I have the relationship with this individual that I really want? What would I like this relationship to look like? And to write that down. Awesome. So let's say somebody does that and they're like, I need more. I want more self-love. I want more self-understanding because, I feel like there's something there that I'm not tapping into that I would like to tap into my greatness, shift my experience of life, and really just show up as the most badass version of myself that I can. I know, because I've worked on it with you, that you have a pretty amazing program to help people do that exact thing. So can you take a minute and just tell us about Unleash Your Humble Badass?
Sure. Unleash Your Humble Badass is essentially an 8-part course program, all online, all self-guided, for you to start getting clear on who you are so that you can create your most authentic, loving, badass life. That's essentially what it is. And it goes through this, we say self-discovery, but I like it as a self-rediscovery process. And it's going through, what matters to you? What do you value? What are you about? What do you want to be experiencing in your relationships, your health, your work environment? All of those things, it kind of takes an account of all of that and leaves you with an empowered, more confident understanding of who you are. And then you can go out into the world and conduct yourself accordingly. Because a lot of the traps, a lot of the stuff that we find ourselves in and feel helpless to get out of is most likely a symptom of not being clear on who we are. And that's a really frustrating, scary, potentially painful place to be in, but it doesn't have to be that way. Yeah. You have a choice. And Unleash Your Humble Badass is a choice in that stepping into your next most powerful self, your greatness, essentially.
So for some of the people who have gone through Unleash Your Humble Badass, some of your clients, what stories or beliefs or statements did they bring into the course that, that this course attracted them because they wanted to change that dialogue? They wanted to change some of the things they were saying about themselves. They wanted to change their experience. What specific things, what were they experiencing? What challenges were they experiencing?
I would say some of the biggest ones are a feeling of unworthiness, and that ties back in with the self-love, feeling like you're not worthy of the things that you're creating or the things in your life. And then if that's your belief, that's what shows up, right? So then you have this environment around you that supports you in feeling unhealthy, overweight, unsuccessful in your work, unsuccessful in your relationships. So those are a lot of the scripts. Feeling completely helpless and not knowing how to conduct yourself when it hits the fan, when stuff goes awry, just not knowing how to handle it. And let's be real, that's going to come up all the time. We're human beings and we interact with other dynamic human beings all day, every day. Stuff's going to come up that we didn't anticipate or expect. And it's how are you going to conduct yourself in the wake of all of that? So people who have come in before before Unleash Your Humble Badass have had no tools with which to deal with that. And just feeling overwhelmed and stressed out and feeling like they don't have the right to give back to themselves, feeling like it doesn't make sense to invest in themselves because they have to do for everyone else. So those are some very common beliefs that are held before stepping into Unleash Your Humble Badass. But what's with that, though, even though that's there, is a willingness. There needs to be that willingness to step into what's next, a surrender quality of, okay, this clearly isn't working for me anymore. I'm trying to solve my problems with the same type of mindset and thinking that created these problems. And that's not working anymore.
Wow. So that's all self-love.
Yes.
It's self-love and understanding. And as you and I and you listening, who has really resonated with abundant loving life and having it all, meaning having an abundant loving life, let's get back to the self-love. Because if we want to show up powerfully with our friends, with our family, in the roles that we play, leader, parent, sibling, grandparent, entrepreneur, whatever it is, if we want to be able to show up powerfully and from a place of peace and flow and love, then it really begins with ourselves.
Yes.
It truly begins with ourselves. And so that's what we're going to leave you all with. This conversation was awesome because, again, I think you are such an expert in, what it looks like to love yourself, what it looks like to unconditionally love yourself, and to constantly be practicing unconditional love with other people. And, that's something that I learned from you all the time. And you have received the coaching that you sought out so powerfully so that you can now take the tools and use them yourself, but then give them to others and allow other people to experience higher levels of understanding and love because they have the tools as well. And so, this episode has tools in it, simple tools. Unleash Your Humble Badass goes deeper with those tools. And so if you're looking to experience an abundant, loving life, then, start looking in the mirror, literally.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because when you heal, we all heal, right? And we're all, you said mirror, we're all reflections of each other. So when stuff starts going topsy-turvy, one thing you can do, you can always fall back on is, okay, how can I work on me in this situation?
Yeah.
That's free.
Yeah.
And it's the most powerful way to go, the most powerful route to take when you don't know what else to do is work on you.
Boom. So the show notes for this episode is going to have links to the David R. Hawkins Power vs. Force. It'll have links to Unleash Your Humble Badass and all the different things that we mentioned in this episode. So go check that out. You can find the home of Having It All podcast on the Fireside Network. That's firesidenetwork.com. Click over to shows and find Having It All, and that's where all of our episodes live and the show notes and all that stuff. But you can also find this show on iTunes. We are recently on Stitcher and Google Play, so you can basically whatever music player that you use to listen to your podcasts, we should be there. And if we're not there, shoot me a message. Go to MatthewBivens.com, use my contact, shoot me a message and say, hey, dude, I use the super galactic podcast player and you're not on it. And I'll see if we can get on there. And so I appreciate you hanging out with us. Sarah, I appreciate you chatting with me, coming into the studio and getting on the mic again with me. I always love these conversations. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And for you listening, thank you so much. Thanks for giving your time. Thanks for hanging out. My name is Matthew Bivens, and here is to you, Having It All.
2 quick things before you leave. First, did you know that the Having It All podcast is a part of the Fireside Network? Yep, we are one of the esteemed shows that calls Fireside Network home. That means if you ever want to listen to a show outside of iTunes or Stitcher or whatever your favorite podcasting app is, all you need to do is visit firesidenetwork.com and under shows, select Having It All. From there, you can access all the episodes, see the show notes, learn about my guests, and more. Second, I am very excited to announce that my brand new website is live. Visit MatthewBivens.com and you can learn more about me, get plugged into an accountability group, and pick up some free content like the Abundance Benchmark. I am all about helping you not only identify what your ideal life looks like, but also helping you on your journey towards it. I want you to experience more abundance and love in your life. So, again, you can find out more information about all of that great stuff at MatthewBivens.com. Thank you once more for listening to the show, and here is to you having it all.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.